Welcome to Dawg Day Afternoon. I am Gilles Gallant with FTNBets on a show powered by the FTN Network. I'm joined as always by Daquan Young. You can follow him at Quantity Media. Quan, March Madness resumes tonight. Got some NBA picks on tap for the show today too. And Quan, if we look back on Tuesday's show, what a silly show that ended up on Tuesday, man, because I had three bets. My two bets where I felt like those were just the layups. We had Evan Fournier over 3.5 threes. We had Wendell Carter at minus 115 to get a double-double. Both of them fall short. But the same game junk food parlay of the Nuggets hits, and we break even for the show. So I'm 6-3 for picks throughout Dawg Day Afternoon since we've done the revamp. Juan, I wanted to ask you this because this seems to be one of these instances where you eat junk food and it actually worked out. Have you been in this position before, Quan, where maybe you weren't supposed, like you had the option to eat healthy food and you had this and you had these options, but you ate the junk food and it actually worked out to be a better scenario for you?
Jill, I want to tell you this. I'm a big dumb animal. I need somebody to tell me what to do, tell me when to eat, and basically take care of me. So, playing arena, you don't really have the healthiest habits. So anytime we would kind of go out for games or we'd have a home game, I would eat on my way to
the game.
To the game. So there aren't really that many healthy options in Western PA. So we're talking a fillet of fish, as we spoke about the Arby's fish sandwich on Tuesday. We're talking fillet of fishes. We're talking like chicken nuggets. We're talking Wendy's. Back when junior bacon cheeseburgers were actually $1. So that season, there were a couple of seasons where I had 16 interceptions. I can't pinpoint a game exactly, but I know that pregame there was always a probably 20 to 30 minute window where I was indisposed because of my meal choices.
It's like, where's Quan? It's like, man, he's in the bathroom. Just don't bug him for a little bit. He'll be ready to go when the game kicks off.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And obviously you had some successful games. I'm sure there were some games where maybe you were dragging ass as a result, but I mean, 16 picks, obviously, can't really complain with that kind of output.
Thank you, McDonald's filet of fish.
Yes, the meal of choice to make sure to ensure that you will get an interception in the following game that you play. All right, now we're going to be covering March Madness. Some picks coming up here after I make some NBA and college hoop picks. So I got to bring on our college hoops expert at FTNBets, Walter Waddell from FTNBets. He's going to join me after the break, help us find some winning angles for the Sweet 16. He's up over 50 units for the year, so it pays to listen to a guy like that. Now, before we get started on my picks for today, I just wanted to remind everybody, all my picks today are brought to you and bet on at Caesars Sports. If Caesars is available in your state and you haven't signed up yet, now is the perfect time. Use the promo code FTNBets Caesar or FTNBets CZR. Caesars will give you a $1,100 free bet just for signing up, risk-free. And if you already have a sportsbook account, that's okay, because having multiple sportsbook accounts is essential for prop betting and line shopping. It's something that I do every day to ensure that I get the best odds for my props. And consistently, Caesars has been my go-to for finding the best plus money options, Quan. So if you're looking for good, decent plus money odds where they're a little bit more skewed, where you get a little bit more value, Caesars has been my go-to for that. Sign up now with Caesars Sportsbook today. Okay, so for anybody not familiar, here's how it works. I'm going to give you my Omega pick, my Beta pick, and my Alpha pick. Each one is kind of ranked based on confidence of me winning that bet. And we're going to get started with the Omega pick. We're going to start with the Michigan-Villanova game tonight for the Sweet 16. And we're going to take Caleb Houston. We're going to look at his three-point props. We're going to be taking an under on his three-point props at plus 135. And why I ended up taking this bet, Quan, is I was going to bet on Villanova -5, but I'm just not feeling great about these spreads right now in college hoops. Just find them to be really risky, especially with the officiating we've seen. But instead, I think it's a better option to bank on Villanova's strong perimeter defense. They ranked 30th in NCAA this season against for three-point percentage, holding teams to 30.6% from behind the arc. And if you just go back since the start of the Big East tourney, Nova has held opponents to 22% from three-point range. It's insane. They've been really good on that front. And Caleb Houston, either way, he was a McDonald's All-American coming to Michigan, got a lot of hype coming into that program. Was expected to be a one and done, but he really, I mean, in my opinion, I've been following him because he's a Canadian hooper as well. He just really kind of struggled in his first year in college. He only averaged 10 points per game, 1.3 3-point makes per game. This is actually the first under on a 3-point prop that I've made. And I tend to avoid them as usually the under for these props is very juiced. Usually it could be like -120, -130. So when I saw it at +135 facing against this Villanova defense, I'm willing to bank on Caleb Houston to continue to struggle with his shot. So Caleb Houston under 1.5 3-point makes at +135 is my best bet for Villanova, Michigan.
I do have a question. Now, I am definitely afraid of unders, but I hear the correlation in your bet. You're talking about you wanted Villanova -5.
Yeah, I wanted to take Villanova -5. I'm just the shenanigans right now. And then also when you look at a lot of these sports books, when they're reporting like the tickets and handle, Villanova is already getting most of the money at this stage. And it was 4.5. It's since moved to 5. So you're not even getting the best number.
Yeah. So it makes sense because you're taking Villanova. They're playing great perimeter defense, and he's shooting bad, as you said. I feel like this is going to be that game where Michigan has to. I wanted Nova to win. When I put in my bracket that didn't get accepted, I picked Nova to go all the way. So I think this is going to be one of those games where they show up and they show out. And I think Michigan has probably stayed a little bit longer than most thought. And I think this probably tonight's the night that they end up going home.
Well, I mean, they barely escaped Colorado State. They did beat Tennessee, but it took like almost like a miracle in the late part of the second half. Well, not a miracle, but it just took some stuff that I thought was just variance that they probably shouldn't have won that game. If you look at like win expectancy in that game, like they were not projected to win, and then they still pulled it out. And part of that is just because they're just not a very good 3-point shooting team. And, Caleb kind of represents that. So at plus money, I'm willing to take that, especially with the fact that I think they're going to probably rely more on their other guards to shoot, who've actually been shooting better this season. So yeah, we're going to take the under on that one. Now we're going to move over to the beta pick. We're moving over to the association. And we're going to take the Phoenix Suns money line tonight against the Denver Nuggets. Second game of back-to-back for the Suns after playing last night in Minnesota. But I don't care because for me, the Suns, they rank third in offense since the All-Star break, 10th in defense. I love Chris Paul, but this team is just a well-oiled machine that just continues to dominate. They're 11-4 in 15 games since Chris Paul got hurt. And some people, they would look at it and go, well, yeah, the Nuggets have been fairly strong since the All-Star break too. They're 9-5. But when you look at the teams who they played, it's not really that impressive. They've only played 6 games since the All-Star break against playoff teams, and they're 2-4 in those games. And the 2 wins, one of them was a win over Golden State without Stephen Curry, and the other was on the road in Philadelphia against a pretty dysfunctional Philadelphia Sixers squad. So I'm just kind of downgrading now those 2 wins more so. And I know some people, we were talking about the back-to-back. So what? Do teams never win in that spot? Like you just fade all teams on the second game of a back-to-back. It probably wouldn't work out, especially with a team like Phoenix, who is 9-3 straight up in the second game of back-to-back, 3-1 straight up in that spot as an underdog. So really, I'm just taking the Suns on this spot because I think this is one of the few opportunities that you get to bet on the Suns as an underdog in a game that they can easily win.
And I think I don't remember which show it was, but all back-to-backs aren't created equal. That's a great quote. That
was a great nugget from Sharky. Sharky put that up yesterday, or on Tuesday.
And the Suns played, like I caught glimpses of the game last night. They played a tough Timberwolves team, but you saw Booker kind of pull it out at the end. And his consideration for MVP, I think I saw something this morning where they're talking about, by the All-Star break, they have their mind made up on who the MVP is going to be. But I think consideration for Devin Booker, as him and Jason Tatum after the All-Star break, they've been taking over. No CP3, no problem. I look for him to have another great game if he does play tonight. I'm not sure if there's, like you said, back-to-back stuff. I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. But, yeah, I like the money line pick here. I think the Suns this is going to be one of those games where we're talking about the upper echelon of the Western Conference. So, high intensity playoff atmosphere. I think the other thing too I think we should really give credit to the Suns for that win, because I don't think people understand that, like, the Minnesota Timberwolves since the All-Star break
have had the best record in the NBA and just really been a very competent team, something that we're not used to out of Minnesota. And, Phoenix held out. I mean, DeAndre Ayton was amazing in that game last night. But that's kind of where I'm looking at it right now. And if we're going to be talking about MVP, obviously I think Devin Booker should be up there in consideration. But let's be real, Nikola Jokic has pretty much got that locked in stone. If you're going to put up, I mean, he's top 10 in assists, rebounds, and points. If you took him off that team is probably won 20 games at most, right? Yeah. So it's just going to be difficult, I think, to talk people off of the Jokic edge at this stage. All right, now we're going with the final pick one. This is my alpha pick. This is probably going to throw some people because it's a pretty high plus money pick, and this is my most confident pick. We're going with Scotty Barnes. Double-double versus Cavaliers at plus 330. All right, now why are we taking Barnes? Well, he's got 4 double-doubles in 4 games in March. One of those games was to the Cavaliers, who are missing center Jared Allen, which obviously assists in the ability to get more rebounds. And what I like to do is I like to kind of look at how the team reacts like without a player like that. So since Allen got hurt on March 6th, which coincidentally was against the Raptors, the Cavs' rebounding rate just has dropped. Their field goal attempts have gone up. So that correlates to not getting as many offensive rebounds, but also their shot attempts are going up and they're being more contested. And the Raptors, they should capitalize on that, kind of like they did against the Mavs on March 6th when Scotty Barnes got a double-double in that game. And 2 games against the Cavaliers, Barnes has 22 rebounds, 8.4 rebounds in March. He tends to show up too after a down game. His last game, he wasn't needed to be able to Chicago pretty much just took it to him. So in the games where he scores less than 10 points this season, he's averaging 15 points and 9.8 rebounds in the following game. So he's a good bounce back player in that stage. And I said after the last show, when we banked on Wendell Carter to get a double-double, and he was at minus 115, that I'm just not playing double-double props anymore unless they are big money or like at least plus 300, I think is the metric of where I'm going to be sitting. So this bet fits that description. And when you're looking at other sports books too right now, that's actually at plus 240 at some other books. So I feel like we're getting a little bit of value. Scotty Barnes, plus 330 to have a double-double versus the Cavaliers is my alpha pick for tonight.
I love it. I love the play on words. He what'd you say? Under 15 points. He's a rebounder. He rebounds. He bounces back. Plus 330. Yeah, plus 330. That's great odds. It's the alpha pick. So let's go. Big dogs in the house.
Well, I won't say the alpha. Yeah, no, and I will say like you could consider Pascal Siakam at like plus 150. For a double-double. I think he'll be very involved in that game. He did have a double-double against them earlier this season. I'm just going to be taking a swing, though. That's my thing is that I feel like this is one of those times where you're seeing kind of a little bit of an exploitation, like where you could be able to exploit a defense. And then also the fact that, Gary Trent might not play tonight. So I think there's just going to be more minutes. When you're looking at the minutes per month or minutes per game based on the monthly track record with Scotty right now, it's actually to a point where he's averaging the most minutes per game in this month of March at just under 40 minutes. So Nick Nurse has just been playing him pretty much in any scenario. So unless he gets in foul trouble or it's a crazy blowout, he'll be playing pretty much every key minute of this game. All right, so now we're going to take a quick break and we're going to bring on Walter Waddell here to help us break down the Sweet 16 and give out his top picks for the Sweet 16. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Dawg Day Afternoon. Walt Waddell from FTNBets joins the show. Walt, Sweet 16 tonight, some big matchups over the next 2 days. We were talking off air about some of these games, and you were actually saying that one of your more confident picks was involving Houston and Arizona. And Arizona right now, current lines for this game, Arizona sitting at a -1.5 point favorite with an over-under at 146. But I think you might be leaning to the underdog here. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about how you're betting this game tonight?
Yeah, for sure. And I want to thank you for having me on, by the way. Definitely appreciate it. Yeah, so Houston, I've been a really big fan of theirs the entire season. I want to make it clear that to everyone out there, I'm not backing them just because of what we saw from the TCU side of things, pushing Arizona like they did. I just feel like this Houston team matches up extremely well, and they're going to be a problem for Arizona. We talk about guard play, in tournament in March, guard play. We all know that. And Arizona definitely has some decent guards, but I think this game is going to come down to the front court and who gets who into foul trouble. So, the Fabian White, Josh Carlton, Houston front court versus that Cloco Tubelis front court. And whoever's able to stay on the court is going to decide a lot. And that goes without saying. But this, turning it back to the Houston guards, Kyler Edwards, Taze Moore, Jamal Shed, they've combined for 100 points, 24 assists, 10 steals, and 28 rebounds through the first 2 games. The bench it's pretty non-existent. They have a lot of injuries. They've had to, run 6-7 deep most of the season. Kudos to Calvin Sampson for the job he's done. But I just think that the toughness, they're obviously blatantly underseeded a little bit here as a 5 seed. And
that's what I was going to say, especially going to the Final Four last year.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that they're going to have that toughness and be able to kind of punch them in the mouth. Arizona does have Kirk Kriisa, who returned last game. And this may make some Arizona fans angry, but I almost feel like it might be a detriment just because he clearly wasn't, himself, coming off that ankle injury. He's missing a lot of shots, but his defense, he was getting burned to the hoop time and time again by those TCU guards. And I think if he's, having to guard Shed or Kyler Edwards, I think it's going to be pretty rough for him. So I'm really worried about that matchup for them. And I think that Houston just has the ability to match shot for shot and toughness. But if it's a game where Josh Carlton, picks up 3 first half fouls and suddenly they're having to dip into their 1 or 2 subs, that could certainly change. But I think Houston has the chops to really, not only cover that 1.5, 2 at some books, but win outright. And I picked them before the tournament started in my bracket to win this matchup. So,
well, I wanted to ask you. Well, no, and that's fine. And Walt, and I guess the question that I would ask you, just with the spread so close at 1.5.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that college games, they can come right down to the wire and free throw shooting and whatever else, but myself, I usually just will end up kind of leaning more towards the money line. Would you say that the money line is? Like, I mean, you're essentially, the way that it looks is that you're picking Houston to win this game. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Would you feel good about it if you would take the money line instead of a +1.5 from a betting perspective? Yeah,
definitely. Just to get that, that plus money, but DK has at +105 as opposed to -110. Definitely feel like that's the move. This game, will probably come down to free throws at the end as well. So you could be looking at a 1-2 point, game either way. But yeah, it's going to be a situation where I feel pretty confident. So I would take Houston money line here, and I do have that bet out there for sure.
Cougars to go to the Elite Eight.
Yep.
Back years, that'd be amazing. All right, next pick. We're actually going to move over to Friday games because Walt, the way we were talking is that Friday games you felt like had maybe a little bit more of an edge in 2 of those contests comparatively to what we're seeing tonight.
Yeah.
And the first matchup that you wanted to talk about today was the Miami Iowa State game. 2 teams that I don't think a lot of people had going to the Sweet 16, except maybe me. I had Iowa State going to the Sweet 16. I did have Miami losing in the last round to Auburn, even though, that's the way it goes. For me, though, looking at the line right now, we're sitting at Miami Hurricanes at -2.5 with an over-under of 133. Do you think that the Iowa State kind of Cinderella run of the rebound of how bad they started this year, do you think that will continue, or do you think the Hurricanes get back to the Elite Eight?
Yeah, so I'm backing Miami here. I think Jim Larinaga has done an amazing job coaching with a team that has really no front court to speak of. They've leaned on their guards all season, got them into March. Now here we are. The Iowa State side, that's a great pick, by the way, for getting them to Sweet 16. They've eked out, a 59-54 win over LSU, then a 54-49 game over Wisconsin. So they have to keep these games low scoring because they won't have the firepower that Miami has. They have a really good guard in Tyrese Hunter, who's a future NBA guy for sure. Penn State transfer Isaiah Brockington, who can score with the best of them. But the rest of the team is very, inconsistent when it comes to scoring. That Gabe Kalshore, one of their role players, actually was their top scorer last game. But yes. I don't think they'll be able to keep Miami under a 50, 60 point total. I think, Charlie Moore, Jordan Miller, obviously Cameron McGusty, all these names that they have can score, and they have a couple guys off the bench that can score as well. And I think that the key for them will obviously be keeping it, under, if they play in the 50s, I think they would have a chance to win, but I just don't see them doing that. I think Miami's defense is too tough. I think offensively they're playing at a high level, and they have 3 or 4 guards that can guard positions 1 through 4. That's going to make it really tough for Iowa State. So I definitely thought Auburn was going to clutch up and beat Miami, but it didn't happen. So I'm on Miami here, and I think they cover pretty comfortably, actually, because of the offense. That game against Wisconsin, their offense was brutal. It's just Wisconsin's was worse.
Yes, it was. And I think the one thing too of why I felt like Miami may have the edge in this is just front court athleticism, at least just from a transition standpoint. The 2 centers that Iowa State have, I don't want to say they labor down the court, but they can be exposed in that regard, just in transitioning back and forth to defense to offense. And I think that could be an issue. That's one of the reasons too why I kind of like the over in this game. Yeah. I think Miami might put up 80 in this game at this pace. But so Miami minus 2.5 is your second best bet of the Sweet 16. Going to be moving as well now to another 1 seed game, this time against Providence. And Providence versus Kansas. And right now, Kansas is sitting at as a 7.5 point favorite with an over-under of 141.5. And Providence kind of got the lucky tag, it seems like, throughout the year. I'm not sure if you agree with that or if a lot of analysts do as well. But that is kind of the narrative coming into the tournament and where we're at this stage. You seem to like the favorite in this matchup, but I want to hear more on your thoughts on why you think Kansas could potentially cover this game.
I actually like Providence side.
Oh, my bad. I read everything right. So Providence, you like the Friars to go ahead. I like this. Okay, let's hear it.
So I'm Captain Contrarian in DFS and bets. So I definitely am picking on the 1 seeds a little bit here. Kansas, they haven't looked as good. And I know that's weird to say because they won, they made the run through the conference tournament. They've won their first 2 games. The first one handily, the second game against Creighton was a war. They've gotten that production from Remy Martin, which has really helped. He's looked more like the Arizona State version of himself. So that's great. And I'm definitely worried about that. But on the other side, for their normal guy, Ochai Agbaji, who's been with the program for a long time, their top scorer, he's been up for some, player of the year awards and stuff like that. He's looked really pretty pedestrian during this run, and that's kind of a concern for me. The game against Creighton, he had 15, and he actually had one of his better games, 15 and 8. But the shooting, he was 4 for 11 on 2-point field goals. The one before that, 1 for 4. The Texas Tech game, which in a Big 12 game, he only was able to muster 16 real points when he normally puts up 20 plus. The matchup against Texas Southern, he was pretty non-existent. He turned the ball over actually 5 times, which against the 16 seed is a little concerning. So I have a lot of concerns for him if he doesn't show up, because Remy can come out and hit, a bunch of threes and hang on tough. But I think that with Justin Minaya, who's one of the best on-ball defenders in the Big East, got very disrespected for that award for the Providence Friars, will be on Agbaji and kind of, be able to contain him and make it difficult for him. One thing with Agbaji, when he doesn't hit his first couple of shots, he doesn't necessarily hang his head, but it definitely affects him on both sides. So you can tell what kind of game he's going to have. And I've been, for DFS, I chase, hit to have his bounce back game. So I watch a lot of his stuff. I also think with their front court, David McCormick, he's kind of, foul prone, gets his minutes messed with. Jalen Wilson has kind of been up and down, although he looked really good last game. And I think they're going to end up relying a lot on Remy Martin here. And I think the defense of the Friars is just going to be tough enough to definitely cover. I feel really confident in the plus 7.5. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them win. I'm probably not going to be picking them to beat Kansas, but I do think it'll be like a 2-3 point game, which people might be shocked about. But Providence has the shooters and the front court to really mess with them. And they have a deeper bench that they can compete with Kansas. So for me, it's really going to come down to which version of Ochai Agbaji shows up here rather than Remy Martin.
And for me, I'm obviously a huge moneyline underdog better. And looking at the Providence was one of those teams that kind of stand out, but I was just worried about the history of Kansas program and just obviously like Providence, just I don't want to say their faults, but they don't really go far in the tournament, at least in previous years. What would you say to somebody like me who was like, you know what, I think the Friars are going to win this game. I'm going to take their money line. What do you think?
I definitely would. I would definitely do that. I'm leaning, more of the spread, but I will probably sprinkle some money line too. Right now on DK, it's plus 245. Ed Cooley is an amazing coach. He has been for a long time, not getting the respect that he deserves. They are taking on this mentality, and I know I'm watching some of your stuff. I know you're not big on the narratives and stuff like that, but they're taking on that mentality of, it's us against the world. Nobody respects us.
Yeah.
We're being called the luckiest team out there. They have that metric where they have won some games, and it's a little more than just being lucky. But yeah, they've definitely had some favorable things happen for them. But they have a really hard-nosed defense. They have positions 1 through 5 that can compete with Kansas. If anybody on the starting 5 of Kansas gets into foul trouble, that could be a problem. And I think that the Friars have a really solid chance. Like it's not a dart throw if you take the money line and just like, a prayer. There's actually a pretty solid chance, like a 60-40 type of chance in my eyes.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. So you've got the Cougars advancing, potentially, at least covering. You've got Miami advancing over Iowa State, and you've got Providence to cover versus Kansas with a potential sprinkle, but manage your bankroll. Make sure not to sprinkle too hard on that Providence money line. So that's all for me today. 3 picks from me, 3 picks from Walt. I'm going to be back on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern for Dawg Day Afternoon with another special guest. And if you want my picks for Friday, it'll be on FTNBets.com for Dog of the Day. So you follow me on Twitter at GDog5000. Make sure to follow Walt, DubDeuces85. Thank you for watching Dawg Day Afternoon. Bon chance.